Welcome back to the X Podcast. I am joined here today with Zachary Brown.
Hello.
And Jesse James McCoy.
What's up?
We have not called you Jesse James in a while.
You used to call me that all the time.
All the time. It's been a minute.
Oh.
Whoa, Jinx. 1, 2, 3, 4. Buy me a cherry Coke.
Cherry
What?
Coke.
You never heard that?
No, Jinx 1, 2, 3, buy me a Coke.
By the way, if you're watching, I don't know.
We're Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Yeah.
Cherry Coke.
No,
Okay.
Coke.
Chica Cherry Cola.
Nope.
It's from the Savage Garden song. Okay.
Nope.
All right. So usually we would be at the Putin table, but today we're the Knights of the Round Table, and it feels intimate. we are.
Why didn't you use that word?
We are a close group of guys at this round table.
I thought that looks normal.
I asked Lydia
I
a
thought it
few
looks normal.
times why we're at this table. She gave elusive answers. I think she just forgot that we were going to have 3 people. Yeah. And so, but, you know, it's, yeah.
I love you,
Yeah?
and I love you, so why can't we all just sit close to each other?
Guys being dudes.
Okay. This coming from the guy that you go back and forth on if you're at a movie. Do you skip seats in between? One time you did. The other time you didn't.
No. Time out.
Yeah.
You need more context to that statement.
Like what?
If it was just the two of you?
If
No.
empty movie. No. Empty movie theater. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Completely like in an empty row.
Yeah.
All right, and it's the old school theater seats, not like the super reclined, like lay back and do all that, but the old school movie theater seats. Do you leave a space or do you not leave a space?
No.
Yeah.
I leave a space.
Yeah,
That's weird.
No, sometimes you do. Now, here's where it gets weirder. So me, him, and Pastor Tim went and saw a movie, and I was like, "All right, are you that leave a space guy?" He goes, "Oh, absolutely." All of a sudden, Mr. Alpha. So I was like, "Okay." So I left a space in between, and fine, whatever. I really don't have a preference. I think it's a little bit weird, but that's fine. But then me and you went and saw the new Indiana Jones, just me and you. And I was like, all right, you want me to skip a space? You go, no, it's fine. Just sit right here. So when it was just me and you, we sat by each other. And I was like, why does this time feel weird?
But we had like the recliner seats. With
Which
like,
makes it weirder.
No.
Like the dream loungers?
Yeah, so there's more space.
So that's like a couch, basically. Like those?
No.
They're like actual chairs.
But we were like on different units. So like it was next to each other, but
you
we
guys
were
shared one bark lounge.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Anyways, we are all topical. Look, it's summer, and
But this is gonna be a fun podcast.
it's gonna be a fun podcast. You know, I'm gonna be honest. If you're listening, I was trying to think of a way to spiritualize any of the topics we're about to discuss, and I came up empty. There's no redeeming spiritualizing of this topic. But, you know, every summer, from time to time, we just have some fun, lighthearted conversations because, this podcast, even though we do come from a faith context and we talk about all kind of things from culture to theology at times, to philosophy, to current events, to politics, whatever. It's also just a space to talk about life. And one of the things, well, we'll get there in a minute. There's a topic I want to go to that's making certain people at this table a little bit nervous, but
Like who?
I don't know. But before we get there, so there's this one format that I want to do that Pastor Tim says we cannot call it this. But I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast about a month ago, and he has this like once every 8 weeks thing called Heresies. And basically and I just thought it was brilliant. I thought it was fascinating. He has like 5 or 6 people, very different backgrounds, all extremely intelligent, and each of them has to come to the table and to bring what they would call a quote-unquote heresy, which was basically a deeply held belief of theirs that would contradict and violate most of the beliefs of the other people around them, or at least people that they're in their tribe or they look up to. And then they would have to defend it, and they would debate it, and I just thought it was really interesting. Wisely so, Pastor Tim said if we called something a heresy on the title of this podcast, that could probably look like a theological heresy. So, But what I would like to do, I asked you guys before we came to this table, is to at least bring like a hot take. So I'm going to ask you guys both a lighthearted one, and then maybe a little bit more of a serious. What a hot take you have. It could be cultural, could be political, could be, I guess, could be theological, but let's maybe be careful. But start with Jesse James. Give us a lighthearted hot take.
Yeah, I came up with a list of lighthearted ones, so I gotta pick which one I want to use.
Well, you can do a few.
A couple just straight off the bat. Taylor Swift, not that good.
Whoa.
Taylor Swift is just not that good. So
she's overrated for sure. She's overrated for
need to
sure.
Calm the heck down.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not even gonna say any more about that.
They say that it's boosting the economy, though.
It's literally brought in so much money. Okay.
$4.1 billion is higher than 35 countries' GDP. Don't ask me why I know that. I know lots of weird facts.
Can we talk about how much hope?
Closet Swiftie.
Yeah, that's a closet Swiftie. Listen, I will just be honest. I love Taylor Swift. I actually think a lot of her music's really good.
No.
My wife is a Swiftie. That's why I know this stuff.
But can we talk about the reaction?
Out of hand.
Well, okay, I'm not like obsessed, but I just think I'm not a big pop person in general, but I actually think the turn she's taken was a little bit more like lyrical, folksy. I don't know. I just think some of her last few albums. Okay, you are rolling your eyes right now at me, Jesse James. Can we? Or Hope and Micah, their strong reactions when they took the poll of Beyonce concert versus Taylor Swift concert. What would you say?
Between the two?
Yes.
I'd rather go to Beyonce, probably.
Really? You?
Taylor Swift.
Yes. Yeah, I would say Taylor Swift. Interesting. I went to lunch with a group of people. It was Stu and
Lacey.
So what?
Elizabeth, his wife.
Yeah,
and
Stu
Sophia.
and Elizabeth and Sophia. The entire whole crew was like, "Oh, Taylor Swift, not a doubt in anyone's mind." And I was like, if they could see Hope and Micah right now rolling in their graves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so
another one.
Pineapple does go on pizza. And I will admit, I was on the opposite train my whole entire life up until like a month ago.
Okay.
When I admitted that I'd never actually tried it.
Okay. Now that's a Jesse story. If I could, yeah.
And then I tried it, and turns out it's pretty good.
Okay.
So Hawaiian
Who
pizza's
would've known?
good. This is a hot take I think many people do not agree with, that vanilla flavored desserts are better than chocolate flavored desserts.
Yep. No, I agree with
ice
that.
cream, cake.
I agree 100%.
Some things are opinions, some things are wrong.
No,
That's wrong.
no, chocolate cake,
Vanilla,
chocolate ice cream.
It's amazing.
Ugh.
Wait, did you say ugh? You don't like chocolate cake?
No, I will eat it if
You
it's
still
there.
ugh. What's that?
I will gladly choose vanilla over
I think
chocolate
vanilla
any
is
day of the
just
week.
more-
I think anybody that would choose vanilla is vanilla. How about that?
I accept that.
Okay.
Cats are better than dogs.
Whoa.
bacon,
Whoa.
not that
You
good.
would think that cats are better than dogs.
Cats are just they're just
I,
better.
I could get there too on that.
I
just
believe that
better.
about you.
But yeah, I don't know if you're the bacon, not that good.
What?
Yeah,
Overrated.
that's
Okay, I would not expect that from you.
Yeah, that's a surprising one for me.
Wow.
But see,
Bacon
it's
is good.
It's fine.
Oh, no.
my gosh.
But if I'm at
I could eat a
breakfast place,
package of bacon
like the
for
best breakfast
breakfast.
place on the planet, Bob Evans. I know it's your favorite.
Oh,
If I'm offered,
Wait, did you just go, "Whoop"?
yes,
of course he
Bob
did.
Evans.
okay,
So
I'm at,
you can make that sound, but I
know,
can't.
You said you made it about chocolate. I made,
made it about Bob
I made
Evans.
it about a place that you have to be 95 plus to enter.
Oh, imagine when we get to the real hot takes, how we're gonna be. But yeah, it's fine. But if I'm offered sausage or bacon,
It's fine.
I'll pick sausage.
You're gonna get to heaven and be like, "How do you like your gold mansion, Jesse?" It's fine.
Okay. And then the last one, this might cross into a serious one.
Okay.
This might make people angry.
Okay.
But the Beatles are overrated.
It's probably, is that generational?
It must be because I don't get it.
You know what? I'm actually with you on that. I think the cultural phenomenon that they were, and like the time and place of the kind of music that they did, they obviously were a very important
Sure.
group,
I don't disagree with
culturally
that.
and musically.
Yeah.
But would I ever listen to them on purpose? No.
Yeah. I have never, not once in my life, been like, you know what, I'm feeling some Beatles today.
Yeah.
Never. So it could be a generational thing.
I'm with you on
But
that.
generational or not, that's my hot take on the Beatles.
Okay. All right. Zachary.
I really underachieved compared to Pastor Jesse. I only have
Those are good.
I just
Yeah.
got on a roll. I'm sorry.
You
yeah,
did.
I
That's
only
good.
have one hot take, but I know that you're gonna hate this one.
Oh
So,
no. There we
seafood
go.
is way overrated.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I had that on my list and I got rid of it.
Well, I'm glad I mentioned it.
Well, I knew both of y'all would say that.
Seafood is way overrated. Like, who wants
gosh.
to eat fish dredged up from the ocean?
Okay.
Like,
First of all, fish in general is gross.
okay,
Yes.
this makes me angry.
But then when
Look,
you just forget to cook the fish.
yes.
Look, this makes me angry. Of course you would say this. This is the guy that does only steak or chicken. You literally And look, I understand.
There's a lot of forms of steak and chicken.
I understand the landlocked blues. You guys have suffered under the torment of that. No, almost nobody can blame you for your captivity. At the same time, there is a time and space to spread your wings and be like, I am missing out on half of the world's cuisine because eventually you just get bored with chicken and burgers.
I haven't yet. I'm 33.
Oh man, I don't think you're allowed to go again with the hot takes.
You cannot go wrong with a good cheeseburger.
I will say I want to like seafood. It's way healthier for you.
You need to just do it more often. Open your mind and your mouth. And do it.
I've never had anybody have to convince me to try a food over and over again that was actually good.
Yeah.
Like, how many times did you have to try ice cream
Broccoli.
before you're like, this is awesome?
I know, exactly. But then your mom was like, with asparagus, it's like, just go. And I'm like,
Yeah, but you also
Brussels sprouts.
hunger for what you feed on, so that's why you have to retrain your taste buds.
That might be a hot take. I think Brussels sprouts are actually good.
Yeah,
If you make
they're
them.
really good.
I do like Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts are really good. All right, I'm just gonna give a couple of hot takes. This one's I feel like, we made a joke about toxic masculinity in the last one, so I feel like as a guy, I shouldn't have this hot take. I think loud cars and motorcycles and engines are super annoying.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
Like super annoying.
Scenario, what's more annoying? Loud motorcycle, bike, on your left.
Or you scraping your teeth with a fork when you eat.
My wife sent me a funny reel about that the other day.
Yeah, you do that.
I do. You hate that too.
I hate it.
Okay.
But
or the person who pulls up next to you with the bass like thumping, and it's like da-doom, da-doom, and the windows are shaking. Da-doom.
That's annoying. I still think loud engines are. I don't like. Look, cool cars are cool, and if you have an extra one lying around, I'll take it. And I understand, I guess the louder the engine, the cooler the whatever. I don't know. It's just to me.
Does it depend on if it's like, because there are some that are like beater cars that somebody's tried to make
That's
cool
even
and they're
worse.
really loud and obnoxious.
That's even worse.
But then there's like actually cool cars.
No,
that
I
are
can
loud.
tell the ones that quote unquote purr because they're like loud but nice. Still annoying. I'm like, look, maybe, okay, so this is another hot take. Maybe it's connected to this. The older I get, the one like little cranky, like old man side of me, the older I get, I don't like when things infringe on someone else in public. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So like a little annoyances that like, I feel like I'm a pretty easygoing person. Not much annoys me, but little things I'm having to watch that don't annoy me. What?
It's just I've known you long enough to know that you are pretty easygoing, but you do have your things.
I have my things. I do. Okay, so like right now, I'm just gonna vamp on this for a minute. People that go to the gym need to learn sauna etiquette. So like one of the
Sauna etiquette. That's the most pretentious thing I've ever heard.
Okay, well,
It's true.
you know what it is, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to go in the sauna, first off, there's a couple things that I just think are normal courtesies of the sauna. Number one, when you enter and exit the sauna, you close the door quickly behind you because you don't just let all the cold air out. Well, everyone's forgotten that in 2023. Here's the second thing. If you're going to listen to music, then have headphones or AirPods. So this is what I mean when I know it's a small little like old man annoyance, but it's like when people are like in an enclosed space and they just are like, nah, I'm not going to have headphones and just play music or a loud conversation at the top of the volume. Yeah. That just kind of annoys me.
Yeah, that would bother me too.
That's what I look at when I think of loud car engines or motorcycles. You know how many times like I'm at, like Schiller Park and it's just quiet and I've like gone there to have like a walk and maybe talk with Jesus and maybe just like a Zen moment or just whatever. And Zan! It's like, oh my gosh. Or like, remember when we would be downtown Lancaster and we'd be like eating outside and like, certain like trucks or just loud engines would go by and it would just like disturb the whole moment. And I know that's petty, but that's like, I don't know why. That's my hot take.
So whenever I'm walking around, like going into the bank or to a place and I'm talking on the speakerphone.
You do that?
Oh, I believe that.
Oh, no.
I believe that. No.
Yeah, I was going to add people that have speakerphone conversations like in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
They're the worst.
They're the worst.
They're the worst. Okay.
But you got to start with your serious hot take now.
Well, okay, and then my other little hot take. You mentioned this offline, and I posted the this or that thing last night with But there are certain basic. As much as I'm a foodie, there's certain basic foods that I hate. I hate popcorn. I hate pretzels, and I hate gum. Hate them.
I didn't know you didn't like pretzels.
Yeah,
I knew about the other two.
He loves pretzels.
Pretzels are good.
Get this guy
A
at
peanut
Brewdog
butter
on
filled-
Cinco de Mayo.
Wait, you don't like a soft pretzel either?
I mean, it's
No.
it's better than a hard pretzel,
No,
but it's
we
still
were
not.
literally at a restaurant, and he orders. Oh, I order like a appetizer, soft pretzel and cheese. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lots of salt and the mustard and all the things. And he looks at me with like with all the pretentiousness.
No.
of
It
sauna etiquette. And
Okay,
goes,
okay.
why are you ordering a pretzel?
Okay. Well, number one, when did I turn into Urkel? Number two, it was the moment. It was Cinco de Mayo, and we're like, bro, you want to go get some tacos at Brewdog for Cinco de Mayo? He's like, yeah. So we're ordering like tacos, and he's like, and can I also have a big soft pretzel for starters? And it was just
That
funny.
soft pretzel on Cinco de Mayo is a little out of place,
Thank you.
but they are really good.
They are so good.
Okay. So, anyways, those are my hot takes. My lighthearted ones. Okay. You got a more serious one for us?
Yeah, there's one this is I think more serious just because of the implications of it. But then I've got another really serious one.
Uh-oh.
That when people are like, "Oh, it's a family recipe," that automatically is like, "This is going to be really good." That is not the case always. Family recipe does
very
not
true.
guarantee that a food is good.
Can you give us an
That's very
example?
I don't know if I have an example right off of hand,
Okay.
but I have been to like,
Church potlucks.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, "Oh, it's a family recipe," and it's like,
You should leave the family.
yeah, it's like, that should have died with grandma. You know what I mean?
Oh, all
Then
right.
the
Here we
second
are.
one, this is the real one.
Okay.
Social media overall has been a net negative to society, and we should get rid of it.
I don't know that social media being a net negative isn't that big of a hot take, is it?
That we should get rid of it.
Yeah, we
is
should
the
get rid of
hot-
it.
Get rid of it.
That's a hot
That's
take.
the hot one.
That's a hot
What was
take.
it?
Because I think that just follows logic. It's
Hmm.
been a net negative, so why do we still use it?
Yeah, but what does get rid of it mean?
Just
Like
get rid of it.
who are you? But I mean, are you
Push
talking about
the
like
bu- push-
outlawing it, banning it?
Push the button. It's gone.
I mean, would
Maybe.
you argue that cigarettes have been a net negative? Should they be banned, Mr. Liberty, Mr.
See, I see them as different
Oh,
because
okay.
we have age limits set on cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't enforce an age limit on social media.
It's true.
Well, would that be a starting place, or should it just be banned altogether?
That'd be a good starting place, I suppose.
Okay. Interesting. What about you?
First of all, on the social media thing, do you remember a couple years ago, or was it last year, whatever? It was like Meta, Instagram, Facebook was down, like the servers, and it was for like 5 or 6 hours, and you couldn't check it. Am I the one who remembers?
I
this?
remember you cried.
That's not true.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh. what does Pastor Tim say? If your lips are moving, then you're lying. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, you would hate what he just suggested, Mr. Threads. You've jumped on Threads since the second it was released.
yeah, it's been fun. Okay,
You
but
s- Thread Tuesday,
that
Thread
was
Thursday.
that was a lot of. It was interesting and really freeing. My hot take is this. You know how you have to take a driver's test in order to be able to drive? I
No,
think
wait.
you have to pass a driver's test in order to get your driver's
I
license.
don't think that's true.
Yes, it's true. Stop it. Okay. I think we should have to take a civics test every 4 years in order to be able to vote.
What would be on the test?
What are the 3 branches of government?
Oh.
What
Just like, I would be voting.
which branch of government is responsible to oversee which other branch of government in checks and balances? How often do senators and House of Representatives run? How many representatives are in each one? What are the age limits and requirements for each individual elected office? How many states are there?
Yeah.
Like just stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay, so my hot take, I'm almost nervous to say mine. Like I don't know.
Okay.
No,
Yes, sir.
I am.
I picked a couple and was like, nope, can't say that one.
Yeah. Okay. Be ready to edit. We may cut this one out later because I feel like as a pastor, this one's kind of like, Okay. I don't think cussing's that big a deal.
I actually agree with you.
Let me clarify for any concerned, nervous parent that's listening to this right now or whatever. I don't go around cussing, and I don't think it's a great thing. And I as a Christian witness, in a world where certain words are taboo, I don't think. I don't think it's great to go around dropping f-bombs. I think as a follower of Jesus, our speech should shine above the rest. There should be something different about our speech. But I do think that cussing, I feel like, is a little bit more of a social taboo than anything that Scripture talks about when it talks about the wholesomeness of our speech. And I think probably my hot take comes from a little bit of an annoyance of there's certain things that are really that almost become more subculture and Christian than biblical. And part of it is coming from the South. And this isn't just true in the South, but it's true anywhere where there's a Christian culture. I think one of the hypocrisies is, Scripture talks about the power of life and death being in the tongue. And I just think, when you think about that and you think about the power of the tongue, the power of your words, and how we can use our words to literally build people up or tear people down. And you think about, the soapbox sins, I guess is kind of my pet peeve. That I imagine and I know this, there are places I could be where there's a lot of Christians where I could literally use my words to slander political people, and everybody would say, absolutely. I could use my words to gossip and tear people down. I could use my words to spread bad report. I could use my words to literally destroy other people or ruin people's reputation, and no one would bat an eye. But if I stubbed my toe and said a certain taboo word, everybody would gasp.
Yeah.
And I think that hypocrisy has just annoyed me really badly. And so when you look at the context of when it talks about the power of life and death is in the tongue, it's talking about how the way you speak to and about people, the way you speak to and about God. And when it talks about your speech being wholesome, it's primarily talking about are you speaking in perverse ways, in unwholesome ways, in foul ways, in perverted ways, and that kind of thing. That said, again, for me, not using a ton of profanity is more of I just don't think it's intelligent, and so I don't love it if I'm just hearing f-bombs all the time, or especially if it's like GD and it's something that's like derogatory about the name of God. So I'm not condoning, let the record be clear, I'm not condoning profanity, but I think the way we talk about it in certain Christian cultures, it just is a little disproportionate.
One of the things that's so funny to me is when people find out you're a pastor.
Oh yeah.
Dude, watching people tie themselves up in knots when they find out you're a pastor, and then they just casually let like an F-bomb fly or different things, and they're like, oh wait, sorry, like I don't mean to say that, and I'm just like, it's okay, it's cool, I've heard that word before, it's fine.
It is funny, it is so weird.
It's an interesting balance. So
anyways,
hot takes.
Those are hot takes. But speaking of hot takes, one of the conversations the three of us have had a lot offline, I feel like the last few years, really, but even more so recently, is the whole idea of conspiracy theories. And, conspiracy theories are nothing new, especially in the U.S. And I do feel like it's expedited over the last 3 years. Started everything with COVID, the presidents that we've had in office, just the spilling over of cultural topics, just a lot of things that have happened in the news, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's been a lot of conversation around misinformation, erosion of trust, conspiracy theories, the lighthearted ones, the fun ones, the serious ones. And so I don't know. Thought it'd be fun to have a little convo around them. And one of us at the table tends to maybe dip our toes a little bit in the water from time to time. And Zach?
Yeah.
Me? I did put out some polls about conspiracy theories.
Well, hold on. Before we go any further, I did bring something for this conversation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Oh, there he goes. Our resident.
I
Our
This-
resident.
just in case, you know.
I love it.
This is a moment. on
This
the
is a
podcast.
moment, and and I just got nostalgia actually because it reminds me of the scene from Signs.
Oh yeah. Where they're like
This is what's, I've never seen Signs before.
what?
Oh.
That's
Of all
a
the things.
that's a hot take,
That's a great
and
movie.
that's a wrong take. That's
Oh, if we could move. I have not seen a lot
Speaking
of
of
movies I
aliens.
should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
But,
conversation
yeah.
for another time.
Speaking
Yeah.
of aliens.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Here's the way I would describe myself.
Oh,
Because
are you talking about you?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay.
if they hadn't caught on to that, I don't know. Yeah. So I hesitate to say I'm a conspiracy person because of all the connotation that would come along with that of
Yeah.
tinfoil hat people and the government's listening to me and whatever. What I would say is I'm probably, at least of the three of us, the most likely to entertain conspiracy theories and be entertained by conspiracy theories,
That's good.
is what I would say. So, not that I'm full-fledged tinfoil hat all the time, but I am very entertained by them, and I think they're interesting.
Yeah, you went on a Bigfoot retreat about a month ago,
I did
and
not. I know conspiracies. That's not.
Remember
one
what I
that
said? If his mouth
gotta
is
buy
open,
into.
as Pastor Tim said.
no, well, okay. And then that's why you're somebody that's really fun to talk to about this because I've told you, like, you're just, anybody that talks to you is like, well, Pastor Jesse is just you're an intelligent,
Right.
rational, articulate, thoughtful person.
Thinker.
And so it's always interesting when you meet somebody that is like that, like you said, you don't camp out with the crazies, but you are open-minded to entertain and be entertained by certain conspiracy theories. I don't know where to begin with this. Where does the itch? You, Mr. Study McGee, like where's a lot of this itch and uptick and uprise of conspiracies in America you think come from?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer. There's a lot of people who've written a lot about it. First of all, I just want to confess something.
Yes. Okay.
Over the course of the last 6 months or so, I feel like my Facebook and Instagram algorithm has been slowly showing me more like conspiracy theory stuff as I've kind of like tried to delve in and learn and understand and figure out why this has come to be. And your comment about being entertained by them, I resonate with that because it's been fun to dive in and kind of learn more about them. But I think if you want to look at where they come from, I think a lot of people have a lot to say about what a conspiracy theory is and what it's not. But I think most people agree that a conspiracy theory is where you have two seemingly unrelated events that people begin to look at and analyze. And a lot of times this starts, at least nowadays, it starts off like on internet forums or different things like that, where people begin to draw lines or draw connections between two seemingly unrelated events. And oftentimes there's a narrative thread or a story that people begin to connect and draw from, let's say, this event to another event to another thing over here. And all of a sudden there's a narrative that's being woven and spun and taken a thread throughout. And that's how kind of conspiracy theories as we know them kind of come to be and come into existence today.
Yeah.
So it's unrelated events that people begin to weave a story through and tell a story through.
Kind of related to that, I was watching. I'd seen it before, but thinking about today's conversation, I rewatched this 20-minute YouTube of John Oliver talking about conspiracy theories, and it was like right towards the beginning of the pandemic. It was right after the Plandemic came out.
Oh, I remember that. I watched that.
Bet you did.
I did watch
Just kidding. But one of the things he's talking about is the different reasons like people get into conspiracies or create conspiracies. And one interesting theory is something called proportionality bias. And it's this whole thought of if something big happens, there's got to be an equally big reason for it. So an example would be JFK. We can get into the whole JFK thing in a minute. There's a lot of conspiracies about that. And there's a lot of people that believe the conspiracies about that. Regardless if it's true, I think for a lot of people, for the JFK assassination to happen, the explanation of a disgruntled lone wolf shooter is not dramatic enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not big enough because the idea of JFK, of a figure that epic being assassinated, is not big enough.
There's more to the story.
In people's minds, it's this proportionality bias. Well, then there's got to be something so huge and unknown and bigger narrative to explain it. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. I think sometimes for sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. So talk to as somebody who, because me and you, this is like the only thing I feel like me and you debate about sometimes. Because so I will admit of the three of us, I don't know if you would consider yourself in the middle or not. I tend to be the person who gets most frustrated by conspiracy theories. Because I see the extent that some people take them, not people like you, but the way some people take them, and I see the extent to which the dangerous ones can have deadly effects.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to some of the conspiracy theories around COVID. And look, there's been misinformation on both sides. We won't get into all that and get canceled. But look, there's a lot of just horrible misinformation towards the beginning that, in my view, cost a lot of lives. Mm-hmm. There's been things just in our democracy over the last few years. There's so many things that, we could talk about Pizzagate, and I know there's different versions of that, but a pizza place being shot up, by people who are convinced that these guys that are just trying to make pizza are responsible for elite national level, international level pedophilia rings. And so for me, as someone who I already look at the erosion of trust in the public arena, and am not naive to think the government's never lying to us. I'm not naive to think that we shouldn't fact check, or not naive to think we shouldn't question and all that. But in general, in a polarized society where people get their information in general based on their politics and their political leanings, and then you just get all these crazy conspiracies and people run down rabbit holes, and you see so many times the catastrophic effects of it. Mm-hmm. I tend to have a way more frustrated view towards conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
So challenge me and help me.
Yeah. Well, I think the part that I would agree with is I think a lot of people that get super into conspiracies, I think don't follow the, they don't see the damage that they can have.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going against whatever the general narrative is because I just don't buy anything.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that's silly.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that more and more people have drifted towards being interested in conspiracies is I think there's as you said, over the last couple of years, there's been a growing distrust of people in authority places of government, whoever it is, big pharma, big tech, whatever it is. There's been a growing distrust. And I think another thing that conspiracy theorists kind of hang their hat on are what they would say that conspiracies that have now been proven fact.
Yeah.
And I mentioned a couple of those that, conspiracy theorists often bring up. There's one called Operation Northwoods, which I guess was a supposed or a proposed fake terrorist attack that was going to be staged by the U.S. government. That was proposed to Kennedy, that he said, no, we're never going to do that.
You said Cuba?
Yeah, so they were going to basically frame Cuba so that they could invade Cuba. This is how the story goes. JFK turned it down, and it was supposedly declassified years and years later. So conspiracy theorists would say, hey, the government does do false flags because now it's been declassified. So what's the possibility that they still operate that way? And we just won't know what's going on for another 30 years.
Yeah.
So there's that approach. And I think there's also, there are some people that are just bored with their normal life and they need to make their real life more fantastical by making something more than what it is. I think that's definitely possible as well. And I think they're fun. It's almost like a real life mystery almost.
Yeah.
Like you get to play detective a little bit and try to follow breadcrumbs, whether they're there or not. And I think as long as you are not, enforcing your view on other people or, making enemies of other people based on what they believe or don't believe, then I think for the most part, conspiracies can be harmless. Just kind of fun.
I think it's been shocking to me as I've tried to learn more about them. Really more out of an attempt to understand. Because I would say I probably have an approach where most of my life, I grew up, read the newspaper, whatever was told to me, I kind of accepted as truth. And so I think for me, when I begin to interact and engage with people who question that truth, and I'm not saying it's bad, but they do, my first reaction or nature is skepticism. And so I've been on a journey for the last 6 months, just kind of even just trying to understand how many people actually believe this, or like is this more than this is just has to be a small percentage of people. And I think one of the things I'm discovering and learning, and maybe this is me being naive, I don't know, but like it's kind of mind blowing just the amount of people who do believe in conspiracy theories on some level, and I think the data shows that it's actually growing. The amount of people who believe at least in one conspiracy theory or another. So I did something very unscientific, but I put out a poll on my own personal Instagram. Not that I have a bajillion followers or different things like that, but I was surprised at the amount of people who responded to this, to some of these conspiracy theories, and just some of the nature of it. So, you guys want to hear the percentages?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so I just kind of listed 8 or so of like the most popular conspiracy theories, and here's what people said. So the first one, the CIA had a hand in JFK's assassination. We mentioned that already. Of like almost 60 votes, over 60, almost 70 votes. 57% of people said yes, that the CIA did have a hand in it versus 43% no. Next one, the moon landing was faked. So NASA, space race, 1960s, Apollo missions, it was all fake. Over almost 80 votes in this one. 28% of people said yes, it was faked. And 72% of people said no, it wasn't faked. So obviously people believe no, but still 28% of people believe the moon landing was faked. Okay, Princess Diana's death was no accident. Her death rocked the world. This is crazy. Almost 60 votes in this one. 78% of people believe that her death was no accident, that there were some other forces at work in her death. World leaders and elite are behind child trafficking. You mentioned Pizzagate earlier, that sort of thing. Almost 80 votes in this poll. 73% of people believe that yes, world elite and leaders are behind child trafficking versus 27% no. A couple more here. The earth is actually flat. Some flat earthers. Pastor Russ, here's 5% of people who responded.
This makes me angry.
Over 80 people, 5% of people believe the earth is flat. Got some flat earthers showing up here. And then, here we go. Aliens are real, and the U.S. government's covering up. This has made big news recently. I mean, just last week, there was congressional hearings about aliens. 74 people voted in this one. 54% of people think the aliens are real, and the U.S. government's covering it up, versus 46% of people don't. Last one, then we're done here. Bigfoot, Yeti, Nelly, Sasquatch, they're real. Watch out for them. 23% of people think that they're real.
Listen, we used to have somebody on staff that was very big into Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I think I told y'all, what was it? Hope's brother's girlfriend's father runs a podcast. Former pastor runs a podcast on everything Bigfoot, and sent it to me.
Interesting. I'll ask people to list other ones too. Someone said that there's a conspiracy theory out there that I'm Harry Potter.
Wait, was that me?
Yeah. I just want to say for the record, I'm not Harry Potter.
Okay.
There might be something there.
No
Yeah, I think there might be something there.
There.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions we could go. What? The moon.
Give me your reaction to some of the, because you're the one who you admittedly questioned. So what's your reaction?
I'm actually curious, why is there so no conspiracy could ever be true?
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
But that does kind of seem to be your approach.
Your vibe.
Okay, well then I've communicated or misexpressed.
Okay.
Because it's not that I don't think any conspiracy theory could ever be real. I don't understand conspiratorial cultures.
Okay.
That's more what annoys me.
Yeah.
And then it really, I think it's kind of like, without going into detail, me and you have talked about this in certain other ways. You know when you're trying to explain something to somebody and you could tell them, hey, like 2 + 2 is 4, and they just be like, I just don't see it that way.
Yeah.
There are certain conspiracy theories that to me are around certain historical facts.
The moon landing one.
The moon landing one. So that one, I'm going to be honest, that one to me grates on me because I'm like, I was actually listening to a podcast today that talked about the amount of, they gave the analogy, like, have you ever tried to like plan a surprise birthday party for a family member? Like, you tell 7 people, it's going to get out. Like, it was within 7 people. And they talked about for the moon landing to have been faked. Like, I can't remember the number, but it was like almost like 4,300 people would have all had to have kept a secret. Like,
and their families.
And like, they're like there are just certain things that like are facts and like they are historical facts. They're scientific facts. We have the anecdote. We have thousands of people that didn't just happen to have mass delusion or just happen to randomly devote and waste half their lives on a random lie. Like, there are just certain things like that when people, in my view, waste their life trying to argue that 2 + 2 isn't 4, or that the sun isn't real. It's just like, I don't know. It, like, for me, I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I almost think that's not. I would like to lump that as something other than conspiracy theorying.
Yeah.
Because at that point, like, theory implies there's some sort of logical thought process behind it. At least it should.
Yeah.
And so, like, that one,
or like flat Earth.
If you call yourself a conspiracy theorist, but like that point is raised, you have to go. That does poke a pretty big hole in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good point.
Yeah.
You know, like that is where I find it fun of like, okay, if it's fake, how is it fake?
Yes. But then there's this whole thing, like John Oliver was also talking about, like there's this like thing when it comes to conspiracy theories of the self-sealing arguments, that whenever somebody like responds and it says, well, no, like that conspiracy theory can't be true because of A, B, and they're like, exactly. See, this is exactly what they would tell you. This is exactly what it's like this self-sealing, and I'm just like, man, I don't know. You're making me search my soul of why it frustrates me. I just think most of the time it's really bad thinking, and I think a lot of times it does have dangerous results, and I just think most of the time, like, I mean, maybe we're being hypocrites by doing this right now, but there actually is a scripture that talks about not like going down weird winds of doctrine, not being caught up in fantasies and fads, and like there's this like, and I get it, there's this human like craving for the sensational, and to me the world is beautiful enough and mysterious enough, and like people are amazing enough, and life is glorious and magical enough, that why waste your life going down dark corners of cynicism and suspicion and mostly half-truths and lies? Especially when it can actually have really damaging consequences.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's some of my like just pushback towards, not that every conspiracy is wrong, because obviously, like you've pointed out, like there are things. Does the government cover up things? Absolutely.
Sure.
Does the government not tell us the full truth? Absolutely. And sometimes I think we've talked about this, I think an important nuance is the government shouldn't tell us everything.
Sure.
Like there are things, and I mean, this may be a bad analogy, but with parents and kids, like there are certain weights and roles of responsibility that to hand your kid certain things that they're not responsible for is a weight they shouldn't have to carry.
Yeah.
And in our profession, let's say tomorrow that we had to fire a staff member. There's a certain level of like transparency that we would need to have, but it would be dishonoring to that staff member and their family if we just posted all the details online.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be right.
Right.
And so I just think, yes, the government is made up of human beings. So are there going to be levels of corruption and secrecy? Absolutely. But number one, we shouldn't expect them to tell us everything. Number two, we shouldn't expect that it's right for them to tell us everything. And number three, I just don't think en masse that there's these elites that are planning and trying to just do all these crazy things to pull over on us. And I actually do think the government has enough checks and balances that it would out itself if enough of that was happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
Push back on me.
No, I think a lot of what you said I agree with, actually. And I think as the, again, I don't want to call myself the conspiracy guy, but the most conspiracy-minded probably of the three of us, I think most of the people that I hear talk about conspiracies, they have made that their life.
Mm-hmm.
And there are even people from the, the Christian spheres that have turned, what I find to be just like a fun little hobby of let's learn about this and see how, if this is fake, how could it be fake and doesn't make any sense, into there is this grand master plan of evil and have turned that into they live in fear of these lizard people that run the country and this is fake and this is fake and, don't take this and don't do this and don't do this. The government's listening to you. And they end up living in fear over what is not actually proven. Again, when we're talking conspiracy theory, we're still talking theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you live your life as it's fact, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous place to be. As you said, it doesn't only have maybe societal repercussions, like you brought up COVID and the damage that can be done there, but I think just in your own personal life, I think it's possible for us to get so sucked into a rabbit hole of, well, this is this and this and this and this and this, this, that you really do become, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where it's Charlie Day, and he's got like the map behind him, and he's like,
yeah. He's like...
Well,
like,
okay.
you end up being that person.
Yeah. I mean, another rabbit trail we could talk about is the spirit of a prepper.
Doomsday.
At what point does a conspiracy theory rabbit trail turn into a spirit of fear and a spirit of self-preservation and a spirit of like making other people the enemy instead of like a spirit of, I mean, again, maybe this does have some spiritual repercussions, this podcast, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind like that. I want a sound mind and a spirit of love and a spirit of power. I don't want a doomsday spirit. I don't want a conspiratorial spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say something. This is an aside. But did you see that video on social media that was going around of the woman like leaving the plane saying,
like that guy's not
that
real.
guy in the back, he's a lizard. You mentioned our country being run by lizard people. It was funny. Anyways, what I was going to say was,
A perfect example of the type of person that I was describing.
Woo. Anyways,
Get off a plane.
Are you, though?
The guy is not real.
Are you Harry Potter?
It's wild.
no, I'm not Harry Potter.
Okay.
No, but what I was going to say was, one of the things I've been studying and reading about has been, since really 2020, we've seen a turn kind of in our culture, and this has been happening for a while, not just 2020, but I think 2020 accelerated it, a decline in our cultural trust for institutions, things like government, leaders. I asked the question, why conspiracy theories are on the rise. And a lot of people's answers were things like distrust in the government, a greater lack of trust in the world now. We never know the full story, so we need to know the answers. And so I think I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts. Is the lack of trust in our institutions helpful for our culture and our society? What are we maybe losing in or what's being damaged by our lack of institutions? Even as we've talked about on this podcast and in our church over the last several years about what is truth? Where does truth come from? What is our source of truth? How do we know what is true? How does all this play into that?
Yeah, I suppose I have a couple of thoughts. I think there's two routes you can go with the distrust of government officials. And again, I don't think that that's limited to just government officials. I think you can apply that to big tech. You could apply it to you can apply it to a lot of things. And I think there's two ways. There's one, which is maybe the more conspiracy theory route of it's all evil and there's mass deception and it's all this, behind the scenes orchestration of all this different stuff, which, like you said, is there corruption possible in all those? Well, of course, they're made up of human beings.
Right.
So absolutely.
Yeah.
Are most people in government, they get into government for the right reasons because they want to help people and they're passionate about whatever? Sure. Is there possible that some people could be corrupted? Sure, it's possible. I actually think maybe I'm going to try really hard to articulate this well without being canceled. I think there's part of the growing distrust in the system and maybe some of the cover-ups or whatever you would say is actually just a cover-up for incompetence, not actually like malicious intent. And so I think, yeah. I don't know how else to say what I want to say. But I think when you just like, you lose faith in the system when it just doesn't seem to be working. When results are happening that you're like, how's this? How do we have this? Or how do we have that? It just is like, well, there's got to be something else at play because there's no way this happened. Or,
No.
Trying to be vague and
No,
articulate
that makes sense. I
time.
mean, I think there's a lot of people who are disillusioned with our institutions right now. I mean, you look at, church, for example. There's been, you can point to failures in the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. I mean, you point to failures of government. You can point to failures of leaders. You can put corruption scandals all across the world and different things like that. I think this is kind of a tale as old as time. But why does it seem like, and I'm curious if you have thoughts, like why does it seem like now that it seems like those things are compounding on top of each other to the point that when, government puts out a statement about climate change, for example, or different things like that, it seems like people's first response, if you have a certain bent, is your first immediate reaction is that's not true.
I think there's a lot of reasons. I'll rattle off a bunch and then y'all can shut me up because I think there's a lot. I think number one is there has been an expediting of failure. So, like you mentioned, there's been an expediting of moral failure in the church. There's been an expediting of corruption, and there's a bigger microphone and video to capture it all when it happens and spread it all over the world. So, I think accountability has to start in those that are maybe helping people lose trust because they're not trustworthy, right? I think that's a big part of it. I also think another part of it is the death. Me and actually Kevin and PT got in a big debate about this. Never made it to the mic. It should have because it was fiery and it was fun. But there's this whole concept of we live in the age of the death of expertise, where we don't listen to experts, and for every 1,000 experts that agree on something, if you want to believe something different, you can find a rogue expert that says something else.
Right.
And there becomes a false equivalency, which, and we talked about this a little bit with climate change, because the U.S. is really the only modern developed world in which there's even debate that there is humankind caused climate change. And it's very similar to in 1959, big tobacco. The case studies we're in causes cancer. Well, big tobacco finds their own scientists to say something else and create a quote unquote debate around the scientific, consensus of what does tobacco cause. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden now, it's not really sure. There's debate. And I think there's an expedited aspect of that in current society. And it's the death of expertise. And I think another part of that is we live in an age where you no longer have to earn the right to be heard, right? You used to have to earn the right to be heard. Going back to social media, there's a lot of great things. There's a lot of horrible things. There's some people that I'm glad that we probably would not have heard their voice in a previous generation, and now we get to hear their voice, and that matters. The dangerous aspect of that is anybody can have a mic now. And if they're cool enough, and if they're your age, and if they're saying what you want to hear, they can literally have the influence and the equivalency of an expert. I think that's another part of it. I think on a philosophical, spiritual level, I think, Erwin McManus talks a whole lot about this. I think it's worth talking about. Almost all of the time, our projection of the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And so he would argue the person who doesn't think anybody can be trusted is actually the person who's not trustworthy. The person who thinks everybody else is greedy, there's a reason that they're doing all that, they're not really generous, and why do they blah, blah, is the person that themselves is actually greedy. That most of the time, all the other factors considered, a lot of our projection of the outer world is just a reflection of our inner world. And I think we have a society and a culture that's growing less and less trustworthy. Let's be honest, in a lot of ways. And they're projecting that onto other people. I think that's the thing. I think another thing, one of mine is when going back to polarization and like politicization, I think that we are trained, if you are trained to think, if I am a Democrat and you're a Republican, I am trained to think you are the bad guy, then i.e. I'm not going to trust you. And I'm not going to trust any policy you're selling, and I'm not going to trust any, theory that you're flouting, and I'm not going to trust anything about you. And when we are increasingly polarized, another fruit of that root is going to be distrust. Because I think I've mentioned this before. I think an interesting nuance when it comes to our distrust of authority is I think it's selective. I've thought about this the last few years, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I don't think it's that. This is a big stereotype generalization, but it's interesting to me on the left and the right that there seems to be some blind trust and some blind distrust on both sides. I think on the left in general, there's way more blind trust giving to government, and there's way more distrust giving to civil servants, policemen. On the right, there seems to be almost complete blind distrust for government and almost complete blind trust for anybody with a badge. Right? And instead of looking at every sector of life and saying, I want to honor government leaders, and I want to honor policemen, and I want to honor, and while I honor these people, I want to have a realistic perspective of humanity to say that there's going to be some people that are corrupt in all of those specters. And that doesn't mean they're all corrupt, and it doesn't mean they're all good. And so I'm not going to whitewash them all and say there shouldn't be reform in any of those areas. But I'm also not going to broad brush them all and say they're all evil and they can't be trusted. Would you agree? I think on both sides there's very selective trust and distrust depending on what political aisle you fall on.
Yeah, to follow the stereotypes for sure. Yeah, I would agree.
So those are some of my
Overarching
reasons, I think.
thoughts. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think when I think about the future of our country and where we're going, institutions have been the backbone of our. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, offices like the presidency, Congress, the church, all these things have been backbones of our society, and I think the question remains to be seen if our trust in these things are eroded. Then where do we, as a people, begin to find our source of meaning and truth? If we can't trust these things that we've looked to for the answers on these types of things, how do we begin to find the answers to some of those questions that really matter? And I think that we're kind of in I don't want to say a critical moment, but I think we're at a time where thinking well really matters, and the process to learning to think well, and learning to question, but also to look for the right sources. The process of learning to think, to engage both sides. I mean, we've talked about this a lot in this podcast, so it's nothing new to hear that. But I think these are skills that are more necessary now than ever, and I think that whichever side of the coin you fall on, whether you find yourself more entertained by conspiracy theories, to use your words, Pastor Jesse, or you tend to be a little bit more skeptical of them, I think learning to question, okay, why is it that you believe a certain way about a certain thing? Where are you getting your information from around those things? What are the consequences of me believing in this action, whatever it is? Thinking those things and playing them out to the last logical conclusion of whatever that is. So wherever that train of thought takes you, whatever that theory leads you down to, I think playing that out and asking yourself, okay, is this going to lead to a better society as a whole, or is it not? And I think if more people did that, we might still disagree on things, but at least we'd maybe find ourselves in a space where we could move forward.
Yeah. No, that's good. I want to ask what y'all think of this, especially you, Jesse, when it comes to conspiracy theories. John Oliver offered 3 questions to ask when presented with a conspiracy theory. Number 1, is there a rational, non-conspiracy explanation to whatever event it is? Number 2, has this been held up to scrutiny by experts? And then number 3, how plausible is this as a theory, as a practical matter?
I think those are good. I think what matters when you're thinking, whichever side of the conspiracy aisle you fall, whether you think they're fun and you're into them, or you're far more skeptical, I think what's important for everybody to do is just to be intellectually consistent. So if you're going to be skeptical, you have to be skeptical of proposed theories too. Like as skeptical of the mainstream narrative, you have to be that skeptical of whatever theory is proposed. Poke the same amount of holes in it. If you want to be serious, to say, no, I know for sure the moon landing was faked. Well, you could say, I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about. Okay, that's one thing. But if you're like, no, bro, fake propaganda, just to bankrupt the Soviet Union, and I know it. It's like, okay, are you sure for real? Are you sure for real? Or blind fact, like aliens are not real, can't be. Like, oh no, the government kind of just said that there's something. Which is funny. I watched a TikTok the other day that was about that, and like all the comments were like, now the government said it, I don't think aliens are real anymore.
I think that sums up the whole thing.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, when's the conspiracy theory going to come out that someone is controlling all the conspiracy theories and making people believe in a certain way?
I've heard that for sure.
And that sort of thing.
Do you think that's true?
No.
No? That's exactly what they would want you to say.
I think to close this podcast.
Wait, we can't close yet.
Okay. What? Why not?
Well, a few reasons. Okay, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, we all need to go around and say the one conspiracy theory.
That's what. Yes, we have to do that. I was saying, but I think before we do, I want to add a thought to what you just said, because I thought what you said was really wise about, if you're going to be skeptical, be consistent. I'm going to bring in way more Bible in this than I thought I would on a conspiracy podcast. Proverbs 18:17 has always been one of my, to me, one of the most interesting verses. It says, the first to speak in court sounds right until the cross-examination begins.
Yeah.
And how many times is that true in anything in life? You hear someone's side. Oh, man. And then you hear the other.
Yeah.
You hear a story, and then you hear the other. And I just think maybe, like, if you are a conspiracy person and you, like let's say you're the person that you're like, I love the conspiracy documentaries. Could maybe just a wise rule of thumb be like, okay, if you really, whatever reason, want to watch the conspiracy documentary, also force yourself to watch the rebuttal documentary.
Sure.
Also force yourself to watch the one that at least in their mind, explains and debunks. Yeah. And then choose.
Yeah. Well, but here's what I would say. Again, going along with the intellectually consistent, if you're somebody that's like, every conspiracy theory is nonsense, watch a conspiracy theory documentary.
Yeah.
And then see what you say. Watch a good one, not a crazy one.
Hey, that's fair.
Watch a good one.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be that skeptical of any other potential theory, you should be that skeptical of whatever narrative you've accepted too.
Yeah.
For the sake of consistency,
that's fair. You should send me one tonight.
All right, I will.
I'll watch it. I
told you about one yesterday.
Hey, I ended up watching a few videos on Epstein last night.
Hey,
just thinking
there's
about
one.
Thinking about today.
There is one. Okay, so.
Okay.
What's conspiracy theory?
Oh, jeez.
Would you say that maybe you're open to?
Okay, so I would say, I told you all yesterday.
I got to pick which one I want to say publicly.
I love this. You were nervous coming into this.
I was very nervous. I think I did okay. Yeah. It's been all right.
Man, listen, I grew up as a 5th grader. I watched Contact with Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey in 3rd grade, and became fascinated with outer space, fascinated with the idea of extraterrestrial life. And I, as a nerdy fifth grader, read thick book after thick book of all the eyewitnesses from Roswell and Area 51. And I don't know, I've just always had a part of me that's like, I wonder if, and so Tom DeLonge, greatest punk rocker of all time, he created out of Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves To the Stars in San Diego. Got to go there in 2019 and see the whole shop, and it's just decorative paraphernalia of all of the things of his quest. He's written books on it and been working with behind-the-scenes people, and sure enough, it's been weird over the last few years to see the U.S. government begin to unveil and talk about, a lot of things, UFOs and aliens. And I think if I were to dip a conspiratorial toe into a conspiratorial pool, it would be all things outer space. I'll just say that.
So Pastor Russ believes aliens are real. You can take that to the bank.
Well, I didn't say that, but who knows?
Pastor Jesse.
Hey, how about you go first?
No.
Because
No, you go first.
well, listen, because I would
Commit.
see. This is what I don't like to do, and we've had this conversation before. I don't like to fully commit to any conspiracy theories. There's ones that I like more lean towards.
Yeah.
But I don't like to be like that one. I believe it solely. There is one. I'll double down on what you said and maybe go a little harder on it.
Okay.
There is a guy named Bob Lazar. Any conspiracy theorist knows who that is.
Bob Lazar.
I believe Bob Lazar 100%.
Okay, would this be like a Rush Limbaugh equivalent or an Alex Jones equivalent, or what are we talking about here?
So
Or a Joe Rogan guy?
Bob Lazar was on Joe Rogan.
Okay.
It's a great podcast. I'd encourage you to listen to that one.
Okay.
Because Joe interviews him on all these different things. So there's the documentary I told you to watch last night. It's about him. So it's a guy that was said to have worked at Area 51 and worked on alien spacecraft in the 80s and has been telling the same story since.
Okay.
Down to the T. You got to look into it.
Okay.
But I believe Bob Lazar. That's
All right. Send me the podcast.
I will.
Wait, but I feel like you got to do a different one.
Okay, well, see, that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
So
All right,
go.
PZ,
I'll
you go.
come up with another one.
What are you doing?
I'm telling you what, I'm Harry Potter.
Okay.
That was my conspiracy.
Okay.
No.
No.
Yeah, I want aliens to be true. So I feel like you kind of stole my thunder there. Growing up as a kid, I was obsessed with reading stories and tales about Bigfoot.
Okay. Nervous.
I remember watching this, it's super Christian homeschool nerdy McGee and Me. No, McGee and Me.
McGee and Me?
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, look it up.
McGee
McGee and Me. McGee and Me. There was an episode where there was Bigfoot that was featured in it.
Okay.
I read books about Loch Ness and the pictures and all that sort of thing. And
Okay, I would not be
Yeti.
surprised by a Loch Ness monster. I mean,
That's one I'm not into.
now there's been a lot of this been debunked about that, but I absolutely believe that there's some remaining specific specimens of extinct creatures that are still lurk beneath. I definitely believe there's
Yes.
a Carcharodon megalodon or two in the ocean surface.
So that's what I was going to get into. I think that some of the creatures that you classically think about, Bigfoot, I don't know if those ones are real, but I do think there are probably creatures that we haven't discovered yet, that we don't know, that are wildly fascinating and outside of our wildest dreams. And I want those things to be true, and I want to discover them. Although, this is why the ocean also terrifies me, because I feel like a lot of these things exist in the ocean.
You are scared of the ocean.
If you
And
don't know
it's
this
really
about
fun.
Zach, he is real. Yeah, it is really fun. Why is it so funny?
Why is it
He's
funny?
just
Because
this
a lot of
brooding man that goes in the water and freaks out.
but I go in the water and I swim,
You do.
and just like everyone else does, so I conquer my fear. But I am terrified
That's my favorite description ever
of the ocean.
of you in the ocean.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it would be awesome if, we discovered Bigfoot.
okay. All right. Jesse?
The other one that I'll say that I lean towards is Epstein was murdered.
You said it's in the autopsy.
You gotta look it up.
All right.
Hey,
There we go.
hey, man, the evidence is there.
Matt, Lydia, do you want to add any to the list that you believe? What we got?
Hopefully, people have enjoyed this. It's been
Hey,
interesting.
nobody's listening anymore.
Yeah, that's fine.
Lydia just said Bigfoot is real. Okay.
Yeah, Lydia is a Bigfoot
That's
believer.
so funny. Bigfoot is never entertaining to me.
Yeah.
It's cool.
But I also feel
Is
like
it cool?
Yes.
of all
Okay.
I actually think that one's the least far fetched. I think that's why I'm not entertained by it.
Yeah,
We discover new species all the time.
I know.
Lydia said she's going to a Bigfoot festival this weekend. Is that real?
That sounds right. I think that's where
She
she
said
went
I'm
on
very
vacation last
invested.
week.
Is it?
Yeah, she
Yep.
was hunting Bigfoot.
Logan, Ohio. This actually sounds real.
I'm pretty sure that not just Lydia, but, well, yes. I'm not surprised. So, well, we hope that you have enjoyed
Yeah, hopefully this has been fun.
all things conspiracy theory here on the X Podcast.
Wait, Hannah says that UFOs are owned by the government. Lydia says that too. This is what we're
Are
hearing.
owned by the government?
Yeah, I don't know.
So
what
they're
that-
not from outer space. They're government ships.
that would mean they're not UFOs.
We have,
Human origin ships.
which by the way, they're not called UFOs anymore. They're called UAPs.
Unidentified aerial
phenomenon.
phenomenon.
Okay.
Maybe I'm more of a
Which
conspiracy
is why what
theorist
they
than
said
what I
that
realized.
what the government just came out and said they have UAPs that have non-human biologics, which all that
No,
actually
the government
could
did not say that. A whistleblower said that, testifying to Congress.
believe all whistleblowers. No, I'm just kidding. But like that's not even that interesting to me because like some country could have a crazy drone that we've never seen before and it hit a bird. That's what that could mean.
Okay, I have to bring this up now, just almost to devil's advocate myself, though. I brought this up yesterday. We're talking about this, but Greg Miller, who is actually, I feel like even more adamantly, we had him on the AI podcast. He's even more adamantly anti-conspiracy theory than I am. But when I'm talking about that aliens thing, he's like, bro, you do realize that like 95% of any kind of like reported UFO or alien, whatever, all comes from the U.S. Like it almost is virtually non-existent outside the U.S. And he would argue that there's data that shows the explosion of the UFO culture all coincided with the explosion of that culture in movies and in pop culture, whatever.
Speaking of AI, I just read UCLA is using
We've been wrapping up for 10
Yeah, I know.
minutes.
UCLA is using AI to analyze those narrative threads that I told you to make up conspiracy theories. They're using AI to track what's the one linchpin in the story that if that was taken away, the conspiracy theory would fall apart. Interesting stuff. AI, it's coming.
Okay, well then part 2, you tell us which ones are real and wrong.
Yep.
All right. I hope this podcast has brought you closer to Christ. And, and so I'm just kidding. But hopefully it's been yeah, I don't know, thought provoking. And it's good. I mean, this is stuff a lot of people are talking about. And so might as well have some conversation around it and what's some wisdom, some safeguards, some principles we can bring as we sift through all the things that society tells us and that we dive into. So hopefully it's been a fun one for you and you're having a great summer. And let us know, what are your conspiracy theories? What do you believe in? What is the government not telling you? What is Jesse not telling you? What is Harry Potter here not telling you? Let us know. Until next time, we'll see you next week.